Hey all, my name is Amin and today we are going to be making a rocket. So I have been searching on the internet for a while now and there isn't really a comprehensive tutorial about making rockets and making all the parts in a rocket. There, there has been engines about making rocket engines, fuel tanks and plumes like fire and SRB plumes. So there hasn't really been a tutorial, right? So I thought I should make a comprehensive, full, all-encompassing tutorial about making rockets. So let's start. First, you're going to need a reference. So today I'm going to be making Electron, Rocket Labs Electron. So I got that pulled up right here. I pulled up my reference now. I pulled up my first cylinder and I thought I should do Electron because it would be simpler and also it would be easier to do, and the shape isn't too weird like a shuttle or I know an SLS or Starship. And the engine, I'm not going to have to detail much of the engine because it's inside the tank. You're not going to see it much anyway. So let's begin on that. I centered my reference and I brought up my cylinder. So begin there. Make the basic shape of an engine, and if you have any other rocket that you're making like a Saturn V, a Starship, SLS, maybe not a SLS really, but any other rocket that has fully exposed engine parts and turbo pumps and everything. So just begin making the roughly triangular shape of this engine, not triangular, sorry, cone shape. Okay. I couldn't think there for a moment. A cone shape of the engine, make the main combustion chamber for it. You don't need to really detail, just make it inside so it sits in the rocket and it doesn't look like it's just floating there. Just at least do that and you should be fine. And because it's just such a simple engine, it's only basically just a cone. You only need to do this part and you're finished. So what I normally do is I take the bottom bit of the engine. Actually, sorry, I take the combustion chamber of the engine, separate it, take the nozzle end, take the last phase here, insert that. Then after you insert it, take it up a little, extrude it in, then into the cone shape. Then you don't need to do this because it's already rounded, but I just like to do it if accidentally some weird glitch happens with the normals or something. I just take the very edge and I bevel it. Not that much, but I just bevel the edge and segment it a little bit. So your engine is basically done here. If you of course if you want to add more details like this, the turbo pump, the more of the combustion chamber, the thrust vector control stuff, all that you can add. You don't need to follow along with this tutorial 100%. I'm just doing the simpler version because it would be easier to get out and it wouldn't take that long. So separate the inner part of the engine. Sorry, I didn't talk about this for a bit. Select the inner part here, then separate it. the area that would have soot. I'm going to do the materials later, but I will show that fully how to make that soot kind of material. And select all of these parts and put them into a collection. Actually, no. Uh, yeah. Actually, put them into a collection. Name it engines. So put them into a collection. Name it like this, engines. So it's a little bit more organized. I don't normally do this. I don't normally organize my rockets and my engines like this. But for the tutorial, I thought I should do it because it would be simpler, and most people should get into the habit of it. Me mistakenly just didn't do it ever. So you do that. You can color it whatever. Then take these, move it up so it's out of the way, make it a little smaller, and we are going to be making 9 of those. As we see here, we are going to be making 9 of those and putting it onto the rocket itself later. So let's not worry about that right now. Let's make the fuel tanks and the engine section, not the engines but this section. If you see on the actual Electron, which I will pull up an image of on the screen right now, it has a little lip on the end of the section. If it's reusable, it's going to be red, and if it's just a normal tank, it's going to be gray. Nowadays the entire tank is going to be silver, and then the ends are going to be red. So it's the I can't think of the word, interstage. Sorry, the interstage. So I'll pull up the image here, and you can follow along with the texturing with that, which I will be doing later. I won't be doing right now. I'm just going to be making the basic shape of the engine, or sorry, the rocket, the fuselage. Center the blueprint on your 3D cursor, then make a cylinder that's currently in the engines right now. So I'm going to make a new collection called first stage and move it down here. You can color it if you want. I'm not going to bother doing that. And shrink it, I like to bevel the edges here. I could be using the bevel modifier, but that would not give me the results I am looking for really. So just the bottom here, just the bottom here is going to be bevel. Make that smoother and auto smooth the normals. Then I like to just extrude the entire first stage to the interstage. Then from there extrude the entire interstage, and then put the loop cuts in there. So right now I'm going to be looking up an image of the actual Electron and going to put some loop cuts that correspond with it. You can do the same whichever Electron you're doing. There are 3 versions of the Electron: one reusable, one not reusable, and one that's newer, that's supposed to wick off the heat with the silver material. I'm going to be doing original Electron, so the gray band one. So I'll get you after I model the rings and put in the loop cuts. Okay, so I looked at some images of the rocket, and it seems these bands are the same gray bands that are on Electron, and there are some details around here and such. So I'm going to be doing some loop cuts here. Make a loop cut right at the center here, then make another one here. That's your first band. Then at the interstage, move that up a little bit more, then make another loop cut there. So that's your first stage basically done. you you're going to need to separate these, so I'll do that. Okay, so I'm back and I've separated the tanks, and I also added a little hole in the top of the rocket at the interstage. So how I did that is just really simple. Just make the or select the top of the rocket, the top face of the cylinder, insert that, extrude it down into the fuel tank itself, uh, and you should be done with that. It's really simple. I don't need to show that. And next we need to make the second stage and the engine for the second stage, which I'm going to do right now. Okay, so for the second stage you need another cylinder, and I'm going to be making a new collection called second stage. Take the cylinder according to that. I'm going to be naming these later, so don't worry about that. I'm going to scale it up roughly to the same size, about the same size as the first stage. I like to really make sure that it's the same size. You don't need to, you could just eyeball it, but I like to actually make the size fit. Yeah, that's about it. Then you need to actually now that I'm looking at it, these lines represent the cutoff point between stage 1, I believe. Yeah, I think so. Stage 1 and stage 2. So I'm going to take the top end of the interstage, bring that down a little bit. Take this cylinder, bring it down onto the interstage. Fit perfectly here. And you need to extrude this tank here. And the fairing I need to be doing separately because there's a more detailed version of the fairing here. Because this is a little too smooth, and Electron, as you see here, has like an ogive fairing that becomes straight at this point, and it looks a little bit more abrupt, you could say. So I'm going to be doing the fairing separately here. I'm not going to be doing the photon or anything like that, because that's just going to be a little too much to do right now. So with the second stage done here, I'm going to be making a loop cut at the middle of the rocket, right where the gray section is. I don't know what those gray sections are. I believe that those might be separating the sections. So between this and this, that's the fuel tank. This and this, that's the engine section and the wiring. Between this and this is the second stage fuel tank. So I put the loop cut there. I'll separate that. To separate, you just need to select the faces in between the loop cuts, press P and separate by selection, the top one. So now the second stage is done. I'm going to be uh, making the second stage rocket engine. I'm going to put that in engines. I'm going to have separate uh, um, selections or collections. Sorry, I'm going to have separate collections inside these collections, so I can differentiate which one is the main engine and the secondary engine. So the second stage engine for Electron is a little bit different than the Rutherford engine. You don't need to do the second stage engine if you are only going to be making a render of the main fuel tank or a liftoff or something like that. So you don't need to make this, but I'm going to be using this render for a personal project as well that I'm going to be posting, and that might have multiple renders associated with that. So it's good practice essentially to make the second stage engine as well. So you can get a hang for it, but also if you need to reuse a model and make a new one but using the same rocket, you don't need to change the entire fuel tank system and everything that you made. You just need to separate each tank and make the render. So sorry, I was just talking for too long. For these second stage engines, you're going to have to make separate loop cuts, or not loop cuts, extrusions here. Take a cylinder, make it smaller, shorter, extrude it, not extrude it, scale it in a little. Looking at this, it's a bit more steep, or not steep, a little bit more angled. So extrude it in a little bit more. Then actually that's a bit too much now. Extrude it in, or inset it in a little bit. Then more. I just do this for a while. I'm going to cut when I finished this, and I made the pumps and everything. So you get the idea. You should just do it like that and separate it by layer. So I'll see you when I finish the second stage. Okay, so I've finished the second stage engine, and the only thing I have to do is smooth it and bevel the edges. And also, the way I made the first stage engine, right, with insetting this part, just do the same thing for the inside of the rocket engine here. Just follow the contours of the engine and you should get the same result. But selecting it to separate is a little bit more of a hassle. You could actually haven't tried this after a few years of making renders in this. I haven't done the alt click much. Yeah, that's easier. Most people probably know about that, but I didn't. I just discovered that. So let's select all these. Then yeah, select all those like that. Cut by selection. Yeah, you should have something that looks like this. Yeah. Also, like the first stage engine, take the very edge here, the edge of the engine, at the end of it, then bevel it in like that. So you should have a second stage engine now, and not unlike the first stage engine I'm going to be placing this in. Also, you might notice that yeah, the turbo pump or the chamber isn't that detailed, but I don't think it needs to be that detailed. uh, I don't think it needs to be that detailed, because it, most of the detail here is going to be like pipes and stuff, which is pretty hard to do in this. If you want to, you could like make it a little bit more like bigger here, here, bigger. Yeah, that's about it though for me. I'm not going to be doing much more detailing here. So keeping track, I made the first stage. Oh, that's not the I made the first stage. I made the second stage, interstage, the rings on it, the separation rings. I need to smooth that out there. And at this point, my my action bar, the view layer, not view layer, my object viewer is looking a little cluttered. So I'm going to be naming these parts. So SL means sea level, by the way. I'm going to be naming this, and I'll come back. So yeah, I'll name these engines, and I'll cut to when I'm finished. So I've named the named all the engine parts. SL means sea level, and VAC means vacuum. And I'm going to be making a collection inside a collection here. I name it vacuum. Okay, so I'm going to be making a collection called vacuum. Put it inside the engines collection, make that smaller, then select all these, put that inside a collection called sea level, and put that inside engines as well, and make this blue and make this purple. I guess first stage, I guess I should name these. So I'll name the first stage tank, second. So I'm not cutting here because it's not going to be no, it's not going to take too long. You might have seen a cut there. That's because I couldn't think of the word. So sorry about that. So I'm going to name on the second tank, then the rings. There. So I think these are the separation rings. So I'm going to name it separation rings. Then the first stage separation rings, and put in the first stage, second stage, first stage, zero of engines. Collect the order, and first stage is going to be green, I guess. Second stage yellow, engines red, and references whatever. You don't need that. You don't really need that. So what was I about to say? Oh, so the fairing. Now we need to make the fairing, which is going to be a little bit easier. That should be, yes, in the second stage. By the way, you don't need to, organize like that. It's just good practice to do so. I don't normally organize like this, but I thought I should do so for a tutorial. if I haven't said that already. Um, so to make a fairing, you actually need a circle. Bring it over to where the fairing part of the thing is. And if your blueprint doesn't have a fairing, if your blueprint doesn't have a fairing, then you could just follow this. I'm sure you will be able to find more high quality images on the internet. I just downloaded a JPEG from Google, so for this video and to use for this video, I need to put the circle there for the fairing. Also, by the way, my reference here, I'm going to list this in the description if you want to make this rocket and follow along. I need to extrude this circle. And one thing about circles is if you extrude it, it's not like cylinders, right? You can just I'll show you here. You can move it like this, but cylinders you can really move like that, right? So it's a little bit harder to do so for me anyway, and when using many circles to make rockets really. So you need to extrude a circle, bring it up again. Sorry guys, wait 1 minute, it's not working for some reason. So I don't know what's happening with the circle here. I thought I would use the circle there for in Blender. I know what happened. I might have pressed the button by accident. So I guess just use a cylinder. It's going to be a few more steps to do, I guess, because you're going to need to clear that out, clear this out as well. So use a cylinder, make the first part, the straight part of the fairing, put up to there, then extrude that and form it in the shape of the fairing, whichever fairing you are using. You could be making like an Atlas 5, and it's going to be basically totally different, but the basics are going to be there if you want to make the rocket engine or whatever. So I'll come back after I made the fairing and separated it and put it back on the second thing. So by the way, this basically the same as making a rocket engine, but you're going to need to follow this contour here that's on the blueprint itself. And you're not going to need to clear it out, but it's basically the same. Just separate it and extrude it and make a fairing like this. So I'm about finished making this, and I'll show you how it becomes a fairing basically. So we have the basic shape of the fairing. We are going to separate the end face of the fairing. Sorry, I couldn't think of the amount. Then separate one edge from the other edge, like that. Oh, and also if you are doing this, So I got into a mindset with this. I didn't do the you need to zero out the very end of the offering, or it's going to be flat and look weird in the render. It's going to be a reflecting light or something if it's head on. So yeah, you should zero that out and then uh, select the one half of the film. Hi, so I decided to end the video here because when I cut down the video it seemed to be 2 hours long, so I'm cutting the video here and going to put in 3 parts, so it's a bit more digestible for everyone to see and make the model with me. So hope you all understand. Subscribe if you like the video. Like if you enjoyed how I explained everything. And bye.